My name is Irina Petrovna. I am 49 years old. I'm married. Husband 54. We have 3 grown daughters. They are all married. I have a very conservative outlook on life. I will not say that I am insanely beautiful, but for my age it is pretty well preserved. The face retains the remnants of its former beauty. Light brown hair, not natural color. Bob haircut. In my youth, I had a beautiful figure with wide hips, a rounded ass and luxurious slender legs. With age, my ass has grown significantly, very significantly. Now she is big. Basically, it just became proportional to the size of the hips. With age, a small cellulite appeared on her and on her thighs. Maybe I'm wrong and aging should just be taken for granted, but I can't do that. You grow old in body, but your soul always remains young. As a result, I was terribly embarrassed about my body. I work in the finance department of a government organization. There are 2 of us in the office, me and Andrei Pilipovich. Our office is the former cashier's office. We switched mainly to cashless payments. And the cashier is no longer used. Here is our boss and decided to turn this room into our office. We were satisfied with it, we even really liked it, because the office door had a combination lock, and, unlike the others, we did not have to carry an extra pair of keys. Andrei Pilipovich is 44 years old. He came to work with us relatively recently. He is married but, despite this, being drunk, tried to persuade me to have a relationship. After several refusals and a slap in the face, he seems to have realized his delusion and has stopped trying. In a word, in the organization I had the image of a shell-shocked Puritan and terrible touchy. My clothes contributed to this. I always wore closed blouses, I tried to constantly be in strict jackets and wear long tight skirts. The work was not dusty. Sometimes there was so much of it that I had to stay late after a working day, sometimes there was an opportunity to mess around for days. At such moments, I read women's novels. Once, in one of these novels, I read about how a poor noble girl fell into the hands of pirates. They did not kill her, but terribly humiliated her. They trampled her honor in the mud, forced her to commit acts humiliating for a decent girl. Suddenly, I realized that I had stopped reading and thought, scrolling the lines I read in my head. At first I did not attach much importance to this, but in the evening, falling asleep in my head, thoughts of the girl and her humiliations appeared again. The next day, I wanted to read the passage again. Every day, thoughts about what had happened to the poor girl more and more often appeared in my head. And then one day, once again, rereading the fragment, I felt excited. Unthinkable. I am a decent, intelligent adult woman, excited by the fact that scum humiliate a woman. I felt terribly ashamed. I tried to think of something else. But thoughts didn't want to leave my brain, and excitement didn't want to leave my body. Somehow, unwittingly, I began to imagine myself in her place. My excitement grew. As the excitement grew, so did the shame. These 2 feelings fought in my mind and the first one won. I wandered in my fantasy world. But they didn't let me do it for a long time. There was a knock on the door. Back in the real world, I went to the door and began to open them with shaking hands. The excitement was so strong that for a second it seemed to me as if I was trembling all over. Outside the door stood the head of the department and a new employee to be registered. The boss inquired about my health, citing the fact that I was all red. The new employee was a pretty young man of 27 to 30 years old. Height 180 to 185 centimeters. His bottomless blue eyes shone with inner strength and made his soul die. The first association that emerged in my head was the commander of a pirate brig. For a second, I began to plunge into dreams again, but I had to stop the flight of fantasy and get to work. I was distracted, the excitement disappeared. Left alone in my office, I decided to look for stories on a similar topic on the internet. After spending 10 minutes on this, I was amazed at the number of those. I'm not the only one. Perhaps this is not a perversion? After all, so many people cannot be perverts at the same time. Perhaps this is not a perversion, but just a kind of manifestation? Perhaps I just slept for a long time, and now is the time to manifest it? For about a week I read stories on this topic. In my free time I fantasized. This has become a kind of fixed idea. Over time, fantasies have become enough for me. I wanted to feel it. And then one day I made up my mind. The next day I sat on pins and needles. I decided to make my dreams come true after everyone dispersed. All day I trembled with excitement and rolling waves of excitement. Working hours dragged on forever. And at the end 18.00. The staff slowly began to disperse. Andrei Pilipovich left at 18.15. He was the last one. In order to make sure finally, I waited another 15 minutes. Everything is dissolved. Started. It's time X. The orders of the captain of the brig were spontaneously born in my brain. Excited fantasy began to paint the following picture. There was a knock on the door. I got up, straightened, as always, my skirt and went to open the door. It was he. Hello, Miss Shenka? Hey. Blushing terribly and abundantly moisturized, I began to lift my skirt with trembling hands. And then my skirt flew to the trampled dirty floor behind a snow-white blouse. A minute later I was standing in the middle of my office completely naked. What used to be my clothes lay next to me on the dirty floor. What are you worth? Go ahead, a voice said, moist and blushing with every step. I went out into the corridor. God, I thought, a decent adult woman, mother of 3 children, almost naked in the working corridor of our organization. It was in the corridor in which people were walking 30 minutes ago. My employees, in the middle of the corridor. It was inconvenient to walk. The cowards were striving to fall. I had to walk with my legs wide apart. All of this made me feel even more humiliating. I woke up after 5 minutes of the men's toilet lying on the floor. The excitement subsided. I felt terribly ashamed of my act. But remembering these feelings, I was ready to do anything to experience it again. Send advice. Share your experience. Stimulate the development of events.